I decided to play football because it was a better chance to get girls. Football, I actually hated football, like just constant head bashing.
Yeah.
So that turned into, at the end of my undergraduate
Joey
degree,
from Law Press.
I
Listen
I
to
worked as a strength and conditioning
podcast
coach
with Ryan Shaw, Mitchell Hooper.
and I
Doing
did
sets
that.
of two, working
I
up
decided to exercise
10 sets, working up
and when I did
190
that, I thought
pounds.
athletically I've always done something, so now I should train the qualities that I'm going to ask other people to do. That started with losing weight, so I went from 300 pounds to 195, stepped on stage, came 11th out of 12 for the natural local show, horrendous, probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Then I went to aerobic, ran 3 marathons, and that's got a reasonable amount of attention. And then after that it was strength training, so that
Elbow and bottom,
powerlifting turned to strongman.
45.
Strongman was literally 4 local
Everything,
shows,
no ego.
a big deadlift.
If something hurts,
Quit strongman.
you protect
I've
it.
done a surprise invite, second reserve to World's Strongest Man, and then really the rest is history.
Absolutely. I mean, you went through that really quick, man. Really quick. So, let's just say, like, as a young kid, right? Where did your interest start? Because you set out to do everything and say, hey, do I like this? Do I not like it? Like jumping into it, or was there something that drew you into it, or were you just, hey, I want to do this, and I want to do this, like to jump around like that?
I don't know, I think a big factor was my parents never encouraged or discouraged me to do anything. And I was raised in a household where being active and playing sport was just something that we did. So I made no consideration. This season, I'll play golf. In the summer, fall rolls around, I'll play football. And then, for example, was canceled because the teacher got strike. The only other sport running was swimming. So it wasn't really like, oh, I'll do nothing. It was, okay, I guess I'll swim.
Just jump in and
Yeah, and I missed making it to provincials, or what you guys would say states. I missed it by half a second, which people say is a lot. I got these new swim trucks at the regionals. I dive in the pool, the swim trucks go down the hill, underwater, I pull up and swim. That's just what I did. And to be honest, I struggled a lot socially in waves, and I think that was the best way that I could connect with people was to play team sport.
and have that camaraderie.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even know if it was camaraderie or just being around people a lot. And
Okay.
that was almost like the facade. And I always had, 1 or 2 close friends, but I found it uncomfortable trying to get close to people from a young age. Which, if we're psychoanalyzing, I had a stepdad that came in and out of the picture. And I think that impacted me more than I think. And for quite a period of time, I had difficulty interacting with people, which is funny when people see me now and see me as a gregarious, wanting attention, everything else on social media.
Yeah.
I had to train myself and learn to be that. But as a kid, as an anecdote, in kindergarten, my teacher wanted me because she didn't think that I could count. And so my mom had to come in with me to have the confidence to count to me. And of course it wasn't all that that existed in my life, all the way up until my teachers to I thought for a very long period of time, I thought, as long as I can acquire enough knowledge, I can be successful in life without building connections with people. And as I got closer to the working world, you sort of realize someone has to give you a job or buy your product, or there's always going to be people involved in it. And a large part of moving to Australia, yes, it was to do my master's in clinical exercise physiology, and that was my goal. But I moved so far away because that was a place where I didn't know anyone, I had no connections, and it was sink or swim or something lack of social as a pastime. Just like it makes me more uncomfortable to think about it makes me feel comfortable to attack it head on.
That's a big move, man. I mean, to go from that and, everybody's got their background and their story and what happens and how it impacts them and what comes out of that. So you got through and moving to Australia, how old were you when you did that?
I would have been either 20 or, no, I would have been 21.
21.
How's everybody doing
You
today?
had gone through college.
Yes.
So you're after
I'm doing sets of 2 on Law Press, working up to
You
190.
struggle with that, even to move to another state here in America, because you're so far from what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and didn't know anybody in Australia, I'm guessing, or very.
No one. I had an address.
So how did you even pick that where you were gonna go, or like?
The
Or
university.
was it for school?
It was for school. University of Sydney was ranked number one in the world in sport and exercise subjects.
Oh,
So that was sort of my
I was
tiebreaker.
gonna draw.
But the reason I wanted to go international is,
We got you covered, Bumblebee! My life in shining armor.
The thing in my closet fit right after my body changed, but then Stitch Fix came through. Here's how they got both my style and fit right. You just
like I said, social. So as an anecdote, I'll give you the most proud thing in my life still, which most people would assume is Will Strongest Man, but it's not. And I think it'd be useful at some point during the talk to unpack the place that it has in my life, because I think it's in the past. I love it. Yeah, but when I was going to Australia, I had, and 6 months later, no, probably 9 months later, I moved, and I invited people over. Tells you something. 6 people in my life that I could invite that was close enough that I could have over to my apartment.
Yeah.
Of those 6, one person turned up.
Oh, wow.
And it was sort of a gut check. And at that stage, I sort of knew that I wasn't who I wanted to be to other people. And I wasn't mean, but I just distanced myself. I never tried to be friends with anyone. I think honestly, internally going like, you know what, if you don't try to be friends with someone, there's no way that they can be friends. And it was like a self-protection thing. But the most proud thing is that in Australia, we spent 4.5 years there, and we had a going away party, which is a bit of an engagement party as well. And no family, no one from Canada at all. 30 people couldn't come because of COVID, and the room was filled with 60 people who were friends, and some people who have grown into our family now. And that personal growth is, to me, more valuable than anything else in life, really.
Well, the connection there, I mean, that speaks volumes, right? Like, in not letting, there's a way that people will build barriers and not necessarily get close to others because, a lot of things will happen, right? You get hurt or, you can't trust people. And, I know for me in the past, like, I typically always am very trusting, like out of the gate, right? And you get burned and you get burned and you get burned. And then it's like, well, now, do you start being a different person because you got burned? And I've kind of decided, like, I can't be different, right? So you still, maybe you're a little bit more protective, but also, you need to grow and still let people in and interact. And, I can see how that happens, man. I can see how it happens. And like that right there, for sure, like having that many people come, it's like, wow, my network of people has grown, right?
Yeah, just an obvious quantifiable self-improvement.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's, some people will burn you and some people will treat you the wrong way, but I think too much attention is given to bad people and bad things and bad situations.
Yeah, they're still
9 out of 10 people who you run into in day-to-day life, they're pretty good people. Everything you see in the news and everything you perceive that people could be, most people are probably more centered than you would imagine, are more reasonable than you would imagine, are kinder than you would imagine, and have much to offer. So that's a really big lesson for me. The extent of kindness from people when we moved across the world to have us over for Christmases and Easter and New Year's, when we were members of their family, when they had no reason other than just in their hearts. That was a really, really valuable learning experience.
That's interesting. Now, you started with Strong there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
was it just at a gym? Something or how did that work?
Yeah, so I moved to Australia, just finished marathon running, and strength was I wanted to be a thing. I wanted to get strong. That was
Let's talk about marathon real quick.
Yeah.
Right? Just touch on it.
yeah.
Coming from golf, which there's a way to approach that certainly, right? And it's, what you do to play the game. Football's very different than golf.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So drastically different.
Yeah.
And then to leave that, which is, there's a different way to play, and then it's a very individual thing, right?
Yeah.
What connected you with that? Because for a point for me, and I learned quickly that because basketball was my thing, right? And I was like, well, I'm going to get in shape. I want to get in great shape for basketball. So I was like, well, I'm going to get out of bed. And every single day, after I graduated from high school and going into college, I was like, I'm going to go run, right? So I started running. It was about about 6 miles every single day, right? So just out of bed, I would literally sit on the side of the bed, tie my shoes on, out the door, run 6 miles out to the spot and then back to the house. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in great shape. I'm gonna be in great shape for basketball.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in, like I worked so hard, I could go run, no problem. And it was like 3 times up and down the basketball court. And I was like, I am not conditioned for this.
Yes.
Like, what the heck? But it's like a completely different animal distance running versus, you know, like basketball, where it's a sprint, play. Like, you're completely different energy system. So, it was interesting to learn that. But I remember getting it was like a runner's high. Like, I remember being like, God, this is really good. And your head was so clear, just going out and running.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, I'm sure people look at me now and say, God, Brian, I don't know that running that. But I did. It was like a good thing. It was like my head was so clear, and it was right as the sun was coming up, and it was like this really neat, like.
How's it begin?
This is definitely a good snack to grab if you're on the go. They don't look like this out of
I don't know how good food you should taste.
Like this really neat, like, experience.
So real quick, I'll be reposting this to my social media. Follow me, just Waltzilla Strongman, follow me everywhere. So this is 150, and I'm not the best log press, but I'm gonna kind of shout out I'm gonna almost I call it negative motivation, but it was a legit question. I got a fellow strongman, Joshua Pinkerton. He asked me, how can you bench press 425 pounds, but you can't log press more than like 225? And that's a valid question. And there's no reason other than not putting in the work. I have a log, and if I use it and work on my form, I can get stronger just like my bench press. So my coach on this got me doing 2 sets of 2, and it's all the way up, all the way down. So sometimes you can clean and press away, but he wants me to reset every time. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to focus on the form, and once again, I'm not the best, but when I'm down in a seated position, having it tucked, I'm rolling up my belly on my chest, and then boom, forcing it up. And with the log press, you can utilize leg drive to move more weight. But what I'm doing now, and I'm kind of like, really, if you think about it, starting over, I want to get the form down as good as possible without the leg drive. So like I'm working up with 190 pounds and I don't want to use my legs. So then, like in the next couple of weeks, I start to really kind of learn the leg drive because I don't utilize it, and then start using that. And then now I got my base, and my base is having really good form with no leg drive, and then I learned to incorporate leg drive and start to be able to handle the bigger weight, because now I'm incorporating that. So some people will say, well, why not work on it now? Well, if I could, and it's kind of like, I watch a lot of Eddie Hall, and Eddie Hall doesn't like to use leg drive, and it's like, if you could work up your tricep strength and work it up to boom, then you don't necessarily need it. So then when you do need it and utilize it, boom, boom, that weight can fly up, and that's my goal. I'm really thinking there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do. My PR is 240. I want a 300-pound log. I'm 45. I want a 300-pound log, like within the next couple of years. And it's not a want. I'm going to do it. That's the goal. 300-pound log. No reason not to. If I could bench press 405 pounds, if I could lay down on the bench and do 405 pounds, then I could stand up and press 300 pounds. So that's my goal.
And you know, those moments, like, I really liked them, you know, I got kind of disconnected.
Yeah.
So was that, like, what drew you into that, and especially a marathon, so different animal? Like, did you get into running and say, I'm gonna run marathon?
Yeah, well, this experience with running was funny. I was going in to play football as a freshman. My mom was always run. And she'd run 6 or 7 marathons as a kid. I'd go watch them. And she was registered for a half marathon at my high school. And I told her that running is not hard. And it's fun. Cover the marathon. Sure, with no training at all. I was like 240-pound football player.
Oh boy.
And I made it, I kicked her ass for about 7 miles.
Okay.
And both of my calves cramped so bad. And I distinctly remember she jogs by me with her running partner, goes, "Hey honey, how's it going?" I go, "Not so good." She goes, "Okay, see you at the finish line." That's over the fact that she didn't stop. That was my first running experience, but no, it's quite deep, to be honest, why running started in the first place. And part of it was the pursuit of physical aspects. But the reason that running came to the forefront was that when I was 20 years old, I had a suicide attempt, and my mental health was really not good. And to be honest, it's been up and down for 15 years. And after that happened, I needed a way to have a physical outlet that I could have my own time, that I could have space to be able to think about stuff. And that's why running really, that's why I was drawn to it. And the further you go, the more time you have to think, the more time that you're away, the less energy you're going to have to potentially harm yourself on the back end. And that was really why that was an important thing to me. And that's probably the largest reason why I went to marathons. Is if you're guys like us, you're going to do things to the extreme.
Yeah.
You find to have something as an accomplishment, you're like, no, that's not cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why running really took over.
Do you think like that, like looking back on that time in your life, right? Like, is there something that like led you to that level? I mean, or was it just, did you feel?
There's a Harbor Freight store in your neighborhood. And the thing about neighborhoods, they're not made of places. They're made of people. The kind of people who look out for each other. That's why we make hard-working tools that always work with any pro or DIY budget. You see, we treat neighbors like, well, neighbors. The other thing about neighborhoods, it means we're close by when you need us. Harbor Freight.
Alone, or like what would, you know, because I'm sure that you know, you touch on something like that, and I've talked about this before with me, where there's certain points where you have highs and lows in life for sure, and for to reach that type of low, right? Like what led you there, and then, you know, obviously like you being who you are, and especially where you got to, like climbing out of that, right? Like that level, like do you think there's something like going back? You know, if you could talk to yourself in a way, right? Like I know it's cliche to say that, but it's also like what led you to that point, and how did that happen?
First, I think climbing out of it, in my experience, a bit of a fallacy. I wouldn't say I've climbed out of it.
No.
I still have those moments. But growing up, my parents split when I was 3 or 4, and I dad ever being at home. He was in my life, but I don't remember at home. And my mom was really, really on the business, and by the time I was old enough to be cognizant of what was going on, my mom was very well off. We lived in a nice home. I spent every Christmas in Florida. We went to Europe every year, night trips. We would stay in castles. We had everything afforded to us. And my dad never got into drugs, never got into alcohol, always had a job, but just mismanaged money. And he always had next to nothing. And I remember as early as I can remember, as young as I can remember, my dad would have nothing. I would go spend time with him. I would go back, and I went back to my mom to get to a nice place. Or even when we were on vacation, I could only last a couple of days before I just had this overwhelming sense of guilt. Because I was born into a really privileged situation.
Yeah.
I've done nothing to deserve it. I see someone who deserves it because they work hard and do their best and an incredibly kind person. They have nothing. And so I've always had this thing in my head of like, how can I justify my existence when I feel like the world is giving exponentially more to me than I'm giving back to it? And frankly, like the reason that it hasn't stopped is because I still think that way. Like if you think about my ascent in strongman, I have just disproportionately benefited from all of this stuff it hasn't been a life dream of mine to win World's Strongest Man. It hasn't been a life dream to become where I am. I'm happy to work hard. Obviously, I work hard. I'm happy to put in everything required. But so are many other guys who don't get the same level of success back. Success is in a lot of ways. Of course, it's accolades, it's attention, it's fame, it's money, it's on and on and on. And to me, just, how can I possibly give back to the world enough to make up for that big deficit? And if you're taking more from the world and giving back to it, then how do you justify being around?
Sure.
You know, and
I mean, that's I can see how, like, as a kid growing up, right, like, to have that drastic of a difference, and to see, how your dad was living, and then how your mom was living. It's like, well, I'm gonna go to this, I'm gonna go to this, and it's like there's definitely a way where mentally that could, play with you a little bit, right? And challenge the way you think. And I think that, there's a way to give back to the world in a positive way, right? Like you're putting out positive things and positive vibes and energy in different ways that I think, honestly, man, maybe you don't realize, like, the full extent. And I think that in a way, where you're at is largely a byproduct of your past and what you've gone through. And, even this, man, look, you're sitting here and sharing this story. Somebody's going to listen to it. Well, maybe even if it's only one person, right? But that one person's going to be like, yeah, I'm in a similar situation. My parents are separated. Like, maybe one side is this, one side is that. I'm going through this, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe Mitch went through that. And how you've benefited that one person, right? So it's a much bigger web that in a lot of ways. And so it's not that, like, okay, coming in a strong man, it's not that you're not giving back, or you're getting more than you're giving, or whatever. And it's an interesting way to look at it, certainly. But you come in and you put the work in, right? And we'll get into this a little bit more, but it's not like your impact happens in different ways. Right?
Yeah, I always, only in this area of my life do I have a difficult time syncing up the logical from the emotional. And logically, I totally agree with you. Emotionally, on a good day, I totally agree with you. Emotionally, on a bad day, understand it.
Yeah.
Especially if you think about the average person right now, and I've thought about this a lot since having my daughter. Think about her and what she will make of her life. The average person right now, making an average income, cannot buy a house.
Yeah.
Can probably not buy a car. Cannot survive. Cannot sustain themselves. And meanwhile, I'm fortunate enough to have most of the luxuries that life could afford a person.
Yeah.
And yes, there's sacrifice and there's work and whatnot. But it's something that I'm working through, and working through it semi-successfully. Like you said, I don't share it because it helps me. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help me to talk about it in any sense of the word. But I think it could help other people.
Yeah.
So it's stuff where I've got plans. There's a book in the works. There's a documentary in the works to share that bit with two sides to that. One side being, here is something that I've gone through, and here's feelings that I have. And I want to be the first person that I've ever known to go, you know what? It's actually not like you're in a hole and now you're out and now it's better. It's more of like a series of tunnels. You're out of the tunnel, you're into the tunnel, you're out of the tunnel. Because I found it so discouraging when I listen to people in the mental health space who were talking about how this is how I got better and you can get better too. Because on a good day you feel like, oh, I got better. And then a bad day is like, first of all, you're dealing with a bad day. And then you're also dealing with the fact that you're not better. But I think if you have a more balanced idea around it, like, yep, you're going to have good days and bad days. Yeah. And bad days are very bad days. And I don't really want to dive into the details of what those are, but it's not just that I'm upset or sad or feeling off. It's not good. But the other thing I want to express to people is, like, even if you're going through that, look at what I've accomplished despite going through that.
Sure.
And you can still strive to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Frankly, I think it's a bit of a superpower in a way. When I be who I am without having some feeling inside me that I'm not good enough, so I should strive to be better.
Sure.
You know, and it's, I think the self-esteem movement is one of the most devastating things that's happening to society, that you should feel good about yourself regardless of what you do or accomplish, because you should feel good about yourself based on what you do and accomplish. And no, you shouldn't feel bad to the extent that I do on some days, but you should be inspired to try to be the best version of yourself in whatever you do.
Yeah. Well, striving for that, I think the last point there you said, you know, being the best version of yourself, I think that's powerful, right? And I think that everybody can aspire to be that, right?
Absolutely.
And it's, you know, I mean, you look at sports and, you know, whatever level people get to, like how high the level, you know, and this is just a reality of the situation, right? Is everybody gonna be able to play in the NBA? Not. Probably. Is everybody gonna be able to play in the NFL? Is everybody gonna become a PG golfer, right? Like, there's high levels of things, you know, even for me, man, like basketball is a passion, but like as you get to a higher level, then you realize that, okay, well, there's guys that, like for me, right, those guys that I played with are unbelievable, just naturally good, right? And what they had inside their heart was not good, right? So they could literally roll out of bed, touch the top of the backboard without warming up, no training, no nothing, and it was just like, wow, this is crazy. But then for me, it's like, well, I'm having to work hard constantly to get better. I'm practicing, I'm training, and doing all these things to make me better, to play at the level that I did, right? It's just like, well, now, you know, we start to look at the body, how you're built, right? So I went to high level things, and it's like, well, Brian's legs are too big, he's too muscular, he's too strong, like he's like a football player playing basketball, and it's not what they wanted, right? So it's like, okay, well,
170 I did for two.
But then you get to the
At the heaviest I've done in a couple of months.
Well, the position I played, right, I needed to be taller than I was, right? And this is just not what I have. So it's like, okay, yes, I'm tall, but I should have been probably 3 to 4 inches taller to play. And it's just, this is what they're looking for. So, you know, you realize at a certain spot, and, you know, if I also wanted to be a jockey, right? Like, I'm way too big to be a jockey. It's not gonna happen, right? Like, I could want to ride a horse all day or jump, like the horse jumping. That horse doesn't want to jump with me on that, right? So it's kind of like you find your path, but, you know, and then we're obviously talking about sport, but it's so many different things in life that you can aspire to be better at, and you find your passion, whatever you're passionate about, and then use that as an outlet, you know? And it's a, you know, a positive momentum thing too. And I mean, even you know, today I was talking to some different people, and they were saying how they had struggled with different things, and it's like, you know, you can have a bad day, 100% have a bad day, right? But just remember, like, you wake up tomorrow, and that bad day could turn into a bad week, into a bad month, and into bad months, and then a bad year. And a lot of people go down this path, and that's why they will end up in the position that they are. But also, you could wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm just one good day, even just a couple good choices. Now you build a little bit of positive. I have a good day, I'll have a good day tomorrow, and then it turns into this cascade of positive versus negative. And I think it's an interesting perspective, because I know for me,
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do It Yourself by February 28th. Download now.
for me, I try to be very positive, right? Like, I have a positive outlook, positive in a lot of situations. But if I go negative, I go negative hard, right? Like, it's almost like I attract it, right? So it's like, well, I'm looking at negative, now I'm seeing negative, and then this is negative, and that's negative, and it's like, I can really, and you know, Kara, I talked to my wife about it too, and it's like, she knows that if I see negative, I'm gonna go negative, right? And I almost need to be able to see that in myself and say, all right, Brian, that's enough of that, like, let's correct it and something positive, right? We're gonna look at what is the good here, and that's, you know, at least for me, in those spots in my life where I got that low, like where things were, you know, you go up and you go down and fall hard, right? It's like, okay, let's just look at trying to find one positive thing today, right? That's all it is. And then we're gonna build off of that one thing. And it's an interesting mental state. But I mean, to the point, it's, you know, as far as like mental health or, you know, whatever you want to necessarily call that, it's not the right message to send to people like, okay, you should wake up and you're gonna have an awesome day all the time, right? Or you're gonna be unbelievably right? You're never gonna have anything go wrong. But what do you do when those things happen, right?
I think my biggest pet peeve, and this should be a controversial thing, but I need to earn the right to say that you struggle with, say, depression, for example. When I say earn the right,
Okay.
I mean, if you're in your parents' basement with no job, and you're trying to figure out what to do with your life, and you're depressed, I believe that's a good thing. Like, you should be feeling uncomfortable with your current situation. That's an emotion based on your output. It almost should be, first, do the best that you can in every area of your life, and then if you feel feelings of depression or anxiety, and that's what the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy is. It's behavior. It's you change your behavior and see if that changes your emotion. But you know, to touch back on the, you know, not everyone's built for everything. We get the questions all the time from people. I'm this parameter. Can I become this parameter? Can I be?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little tired.
And
I want more 190 for
I don't
two.
think anyone
So,
will get to the top level.
and pause real quick.
Will get to the top level. If your goal was always to compare yourself to others and get to the top level that way, it's always just steady improvements on what you were capable of. And frankly, still in my position, that has to be the primary determinant, because it'd be very easy to take my foot off the gas.
So, I'm working up log pressing. I actually put this thing out on people over 40, I'm 45, and I said, I asked a question, I got it from a fitness group, when you, as you get older, do you still look heavy? And a lot of people are like, yes, some people are like, no, but some people are like, I still do whatever. And I am not ready to stop being as strong as possible. If you look on the wall, I don't know if you can see it, I got some of my records that I've achieved, medals I won. And I just started strength sports in 2021. And it's so funny, I had a conversation with my mom, and so to me, I'm really strong. And let me say it this way, and this is kind of a backwards thing, right? 190 on the log is a struggle for me. I haven't done it in a while, and I'm gonna go for 2 reps. And I'm really strong. Now, saying that, I was just watching The Strongest Man on Earth, where they were starting off at 400 pounds. So how can I say I'm really strong doing 190? They're doing double the weight. People can't even lift 15 pounds over their head, some people. So just because I'm not the strongest person on the earth doesn't mean I'm not strong, right? And I'm not quite ready to give that up yet, because there's going to be a time as I get older, 190 is going to be a memory, you know? With that being said, since in 2020, I got in a car accident where I had a concussion and an injury to my shoulder and my neck. 2 years later, had another car accident where I had a herniated disc, my lower back, my neck again. I couldn't even work for like 3 months. I couldn't lift over 20 pounds. And being 2023 with competing, I took the year off, no strongman at all. 2024, I went ham, and I did like 5 competitions, ended up injuring my knee, had to go to physical therapy for my knee. And 2025, I did a few competitions, but then when I was squatting, it's like my back is hurting. I actually went to the hospital, and I thought I had COVID. I've had COVID 3 times. And they took an x-ray, and I looked at I read the medical thing, and it said, degeneration in the disc of the back, not previously seen. I'm like, what is that? So I had COVID the year before, so in that last year, there was more disc degeneration in my disc that they could literally see on the x-ray. And I'm like, wow. And I went to the chiropractor and was like, yeah, getting older, car accidents, heavy lifting. There you go. Got to be careful. So I'm literally having to be careful because if I push it too hard, then I can cause damage to my nerves and I'll be in a whole different world. So I'm kind of been starting over and kind of relearning my body and relearning my position to what can I do and how heavy can I go without hurting myself. And that sounds real crazy to even say out loud, but also if you ever competed strongman or powerlifting, that's the name of the game. When you put that max weight on the bar and you ask for a spotter, hey, can you spot me? Like, most of this, depending on the weight, is either a weight that you are 95% sure that you can do, but sometimes it's like mentally 95% sure that you can do, but 35% actuality that you can do it, and you got to be real careful that you don't hurt yourself. And that's a lot of time in strength sports. How can I lift this weight, contort my body, angle my body, twist my body, move my body to get this weight, and at the end of the day be able to go to work tomorrow, do whatever I need to do. So with that being said, I'm going to put this thing back on. I'm listening to Mitch Hooper and Brian Shaw. And I have certain things that when I'm hitting the reset, I would say I almost kind of need motivation, inspiration, or either, I'll be honest, just soothing voices or conversations that I've heard before that kind of just hit me good. I'll listen to them. And Brian Shaw and Mitchell Hooper, this podcast that they did a couple years ago is one of them. Also, I like to listen to and watch Born Strong. It was a documentary covering Arnold Strongman about 10 years ago with Eddie Hall, Brian Shaw, Big Z, and Thor. And here's the big thing I like about that, like for real. I don't know what their financial state was. I don't know what their popularity was, their success was 10 years ago. I don't know where they were at. But I can tell you this, when I was following Brian Shaw, he had to move because they said, hey, you can't add on to your garage anymore because it's going to be considered a commercial gym. So he had to move, right? That was like 8-9 years ago. And now he's a millionaire with about 4 or 5 businesses. Eddie Hall, he's in a modest home, I say it looks like an average home with his family. Hadn't won the world's strongest man, hadn't got the deadlift world record yet that he has. And he was on the come up like this far away from being to where he needed to go. And once he hit that in 2017, he's a millionaire now. And I'm saying that because like even with me, even if I'm not a millionaire, like even with this TikTok, Facebook and all that, I want millions of followers. And it's not necessarily for clout, money or whatever, but I just motivated and inspired somebody with a post I did to compete in this competition that's called 8Lift. Look it up, 8lift.com. It's a free online competition. And if I can motivate somebody to try something in strength, go for a walk, do a push-up, try a healthier food, believe in themselves, try a cardio workout, walk 2 minutes rather than not walk at all. That's why I'm here, and that's why I want millions of followers, and that's why I want people to follow along this journey so that can happen. So at the end of the day, when I'm gone, it could be legacy to people living here longer on this earth and inspired and making better decisions, because one day they saw a Walzilla Strongman video and they heard me talking about overcoming obstacles and not quitting. So that's my goal. So I like to watch that Born Strong because 3 out of 4 people were living a modest lifestyle, including Hathor Bjornsson, even though he was an actor. And he's a millionaire now. And they're widely known and millions of followers and millions of dollars. And I like that they take their use and they take their platform to not just lift weights, not just show their life, but try to do what I'm doing. Motivate, inspire people to work out, lift weights, live a healthier lifestyle, not give up on their dream. With that being said, I'm about to turn this back on. I'm actually thinking I'm going to turn on some music to kind of get me in the zone. Anybody watching? No, but I said this before. One day I will have millions of followers. So I'm going to throw in a song that hopefully don't get me hit up with copyrights, just to get me in the mood to pop this weight up. And then I'm going to force myself to squat.
Vitamins get all the credit, but minerals do all the work, supporting energy, bone health, and digestion. Trace Minerals products provide over 70 minerals designed to restore what's missing. Minerals keep you moving.
I can swallow up, bottle up, alcohol it up, feel like Godzilla. Let's go!